Coming in at a hefty 31.5 inches, the EW3270U monitor from BenQ is the largest screen I have owned that wasn't a full-blown television. Moving from a 28-inch to a 32-inch panel was, if I'm a little honest, a bit daunting at first, but after spending several days using it, I've come to appreciate the advantages that a larger screen size brings. Now, I have been testing and using this monitor for editing my YouTube videos, watching YouTube videos, PS4 gaming, and PC gaming at 4K. Indeed, the EW3270U is a 4K monitor that supports multiple resolutions up to and including 3840 by 2160. As is standard for 4K monitors in 2018, the screen outputs a maximum 60Hz refresh rate. What this means is that you will not be gaming at higher than 60 frames per second, although let's be honest, with current computer graphics technology, that's unlikely to be a relevant limitation for you anyhow. In fact, and I'm sure this goes without saying, you are going to want to make sure that you have the beefy hardware that's going to be required to adequately support the 4K resolution in the first place. And now let's explore some of the specs and technologies that you're going to likely be interested in. As previously mentioned, this is a 31.5 inch panel with a 4K native resolution, and as you'd expect, the screen has a 16:9 aspect ratio. Other than the high resolution, the major feature of this monitor is the support for HDR, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. The panel is a VA type, which will bring wider viewing angles and greater colour production over a TN variant, but with a slightly higher response time. BenQ claims that the greater grey response time is 4 milliseconds, and that the brightness rating is 300 nits. The high contrast ratio does provide a great contrast between whites and blacks, with the latter especially I noticed displaying fairly well. In terms of connectivity, there is two HDMI 2.0 ports, a DisplayPort 1.4, a USB-C port, and also a headphone jack. Although, as a side note, the USB-C port is another video in connection and so cannot be used for connecting USB hubs or devices. There are also two inbuilt speakers, which I guess can be helpful when you don't mind typical monitor sounding audio, or when you can't be bothered to connect your usual audio output. But as with most monitor speakers, you're not really going to be wanting to rely on these as your primary audio source. However, not every monitor does have inbuilt audio, so it's a nice thing to have for emergency use. Now, in terms of the physical design, the plastic bezel is quite a substantial 13mm on the sides and top, and a little bit more than this along the bottom. The stand is also made of plastic but keeps the monitor very stable actually. Unfortunately, there is very little in the way of adjustments. You can tilt forwards and backwards, but there's nothing in terms of swivel and no height adjustment at all. However, what there is an option for VESA attachment, and this can be used for wall mounting the monitor or for simply connecting a more premium third-party adjustable stand. The overlay uses a standard BenQ interface, which does the job well and provides multiple options for adjusting the picture to your preference. One negative I would raise, however, is the inability to change settings whilst in HDR mode. There are, however, two factory-supplied HDR settings, but with no further adjustments possible, well, I do think that's a bit of a shame. The monitor is compliant with HDCP 2.2, which means you can display 4K Blu-ray content, so long of course as your Blu-ray player also supports this, and BenQ has also included some of its own popular technologies with this model. The low blue light technology is a nice feature that can allegedly reduce eye strain during extended use by filtering out blue light, although this is only available when HDR mode is disabled. And you may have noticed at the bottom of the monitor we have this small piece of hardware. This is a sensor and can detect the ambient light levels of the room as part of BenQ's Brightness Intelligence Plus or BI Plus technology, and this will then automatically adjust the overall brightness of the display to an ideal level based on current light conditions. And it's an optional feature, so you can enable it or disable it from the monitor's on-screen menu, or from this handy button down in the bottom right of the monitor, which quickly allows you to switch between various combinations of HDR and BI Plus modes. BI Plus technology might sound like a gimmick, but having personally used this feature extensively on another BenQ monitor, it is now something I have enabled virtually all of the time. As a matter of fact, I would even say that I miss this feature when I'm using a monitor that doesn't have it. And the EW3270U also supports AMD's FreeSync technology, which, as an NVIDIA user myself, I don't actually have the hardware to experience, but I know it will be appreciated by those of you who do. In terms of the HDR functionality, the 300 nits brightness might sound a little low, but enabling the feature does still make a decent difference to the vibrancy of the colours displayed. And perhaps while we're talking about HDR, something that's worth mentioning is the recent Windows HDR software update. Now, you're going to have this automatically if you've updated to the latest Windows 10 build, and what it's going to do is allow you to adjust the brightness of SDR content without affecting the HDR content at all. And even though normal Windows usage still looks a little bit strange with HDR enabled, it no longer looks like the absolute washed out mess that it once did. And for the sake of my own convenience, I'm honestly happy to keep HDR enabled all the time since these improvements. The picture quality is something that overall has impressed me a lot with this particular monitor. The VA panel does look stunning, and the out-of-the-box settings are fairly darn close actually to an accurate calibration. I've not had any issues with backlight bleed, and the viewing angles are certainly superior to what is achievable with a TN panel. The larger 32-inch screen size allows me to multitask without always having to use a second monitor, and it is a good complement for the 4K resolution. While making this video review, the Amazon UK price was just under £450 and the US price was $600. However, I will leave my Amazon links in the description so that you can check out the latest pricing. Overall, I'm very happy with the BenQ EW3270U, and I believe it offers good value for money with a decent range of features. And now that I've shared my thoughts with you, I would, as always, be interested in hearing yours also. If you own and or have used this monitor, please do let us all know what you think in the comments section below, and I will say thank you very much to all of my viewers and subscribers, and a huge shout out to everybody who supports my channel via Patreon, YouTube sponsorships and donations. I hope you all take it easy, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you all in the next video.